If you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now and the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video posts. Also, if you're already subscribed, be sure to check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. Seems every week I get a number of people who tell me that they were unsubscribed without their permission. And of course, be sure to give the video a like. The white supremacists hate that. Now, that said, it's pretty easy to tell the difference between grassroots and astroturf. For the longest time, Mammy Oprah hasn't had anything of note to say about the numerous murders of black people at the hands of white supremacists, particularly those in law enforcement. But Harpo has decided to slither out of whatever hole she's been hiding in, and she's now trying to carpet bomb the city of Louisville with a bunch of billboards regarding Breonna Taylor. It is being done in the name of her soon-to-be defunct print edition of her magazine, which is nothing more than circling the toilet bowl for her little vanity project altogether. Though we need to make sure that we are very clear, Oprah Winfrey's so-called 26 billboards about Breonna Taylor, this is nothing more than an effort aimed at the black grassroots. That's who this is really about. This is an effort on the part of Oprah to try to overpower the message that the black grassroots has put in Louisville. You see, the black media led the effort to get that billboard put up in Louisville, making it very clear that the black people of that city need to be put on notice. What is called for in a time like this, sitting on your hands ain't it. Saying that black men are here for Breonna Taylor to counter all of that feminist agitprop being put forward by a bunch of bought and paid for bootlicks who are trying to take momentum out of this movement. Individuals trying to figure out how do we fracture black unity along lines of gender as they did in the 60s and 70s. They're finding out that that strategy is not working. And you can tell that the powers that be have felt the heat. Last time when Jason put up 3 billboards in New York, next thing you know, you had some folk in Michigan putting up a sign saying that Livonia had racial profiling. He didn't say what to do about it or anything, but here they go. This time around, they have a new white supremacist sock puppet, Oprah, and she at least learned from the mistakes of those people in Livonia. She said, okay, well, maybe they should be charged. Ain't that funny? Oprah Winfrey is allegedly a billionaire, and yet for some dang reason, how much money has she put into making sure that there would be a DA or making sure there would be mayoral candidates, people in political office, where you wouldn't have to sit here and do anything about asking that murderers actually be punished? It would be baked into the cake. It would already be put into the system. She hasn't done anything, and she's not going to. Do not let her or anyone else fool you with these billboards about Breonna Taylor. The entire idea here is to try to drown out the black media. That's what's really going on here. The target here is not the police. That's part of the reason why you don't see Oprah actually going there and saying, you know what, I should use my big fat waddling behind to try to get some attention, and I'm going to go ahead and hold some rallies or hold some press conferences. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to actually put my face in front of the cameras and say, these police need to be charged. She's not doing that. Because that's not what this is about. What this is about is countering the black media. The white supremacist operatives are trying to show us that they haven't lost control of the narrative, that they can counter what it is that we're doing by drowning out what we're saying. But it does show the effectiveness of the black media in one crucial regard. You see, Mammy Oprah and the white powers behind her, they realized they couldn't put up one billboard. One billboard wasn't going to be enough. Hell, they couldn't even put up 5 or even 10. That wouldn't be enough. They realized that the black media had struck first and struck best. The black media said what was on everyone's minds and did it in a place and in such a scale that it couldn't be missed. So in order to try to counter that, they put up over 24, more than 24 billboards, trying to figure out how to sound a little bit like us, calling themselves trying to counter us. We're going to put up over 24 of them. You see, they understood that they couldn't do some mamby-pamby empty rhetoric. They had to at least suggest that the white supremacists who murdered Breonna Taylor, that something should be done. See, they're trying to pretend to talk like us. They're trying to pretend to be like us. And that's because The black media has defined what constitutes legitimate protest in this regard. That's part of the reason why you ain't got nobody like Joy Jackass Reed or Roly Poly Martin, the old dead black media who the white media's got on life support. These clowns, these bootlicks from a bygone era, they're trying to figure out how do they make themselves relevant again. And you can do as many interviews with rappers as you want. That don't make you relevant. It's what the black grassroots does that makes you relevant. And the black media, representing the black grassroots, which Oprah and Roly and Joy do not, we have taken the initiative. And you can tell we have because they're following us. I suppose their idea, such as it is that what they think is going to happen is when people talk about the Breonna Taylor billboards, they're hopefully everyone's going to remember Oprah's asinine little billboards. That's the reason why she chose to put it up in yellow. She wanted to make sure there would be a color that hopefully would grab attention. People would look at it. You see, Jason chose black because that happens to be one that says serious. Oprah put this doggone thing up. If Oprah really was serious about what she was saying, what she would be doing is running around saying, we got to get some candidates on these ballots who are going to make it a point to punish the police. She'd be putting her face and her raggedy big mouth out there, but she's not. Because this is all about political distraction. This is a diversion that's going on. And the idea is, hopefully, you can fool some of the black grassroots and they'll be like, yeah, Oprah put this thing on the map. Man, Oprah's late to the doggone party. She only showed up because the black grassroots, led by the black media, decided to put down to stake a flag in Louisville and to try to galvanize people, and it worked. That's what happened. It worked. So Oprah and her white handlers felt like they had to do something. But you know what? The black grassroots, we are not fooled at all. Because what I want to know is, where the hell was Oprah Winfrey when Trayvon Martin was murdered? Where were her billboards then? Was she putting up any billboards for that? How about billboards for Mike Brown? Huh? Oh, okay, so she didn't have anything. How about billboards for Laquan McDonald, murdered in her hometown of Chicago? Did she have any billboards for Laquan McDonald? Oh, okay, this is about black women. Oh, so Oprah, she's doing this because black women the deaths of black women need to be mentioned as well. Oh, so that's why she's showing up. Well, gee, in that case, then someone please remind me, where were Oprah's billboards when Sandra Bland was murdered? Anyone remember any billboards that Oprah put up after Sandra Bland was murdered? Hey, how about Oprah's billboards after Rekia Boyd was murdered? Or Renisha McBride? Or Ayanna Jones, or Charlena Lyles, or Tatiana Jefferson. Anybody remember the 24 billboards that Oprah put up in Fort Worth after Tatiana Jefferson was murdered? Me neither. So Oprah Winfrey, she don't give a damn about black women, never has. Her white handlers told her this black grassroots is causing problems and it's going to get worse. It's this bad during an election year. You think it's going to get any better after the election? We got to stop this black grassroots now, Oprah. You better get out there. We didn't give you what little money we let you have so that you could sit back and eat bonbons all day and stare lovingly into Gayle King's eyes. We gave it to you so that you could be our stalking horse against black empowerment. So you better get out there. You better produce. Oprah didn't have to wait until now to do something. She didn't have to wait until now to say something. And you would think that with the print edition of her Oprah magazine circling the toilet bowl, soon to be out of print, you would think that a psychopathic narcissist like her would be obsessed with that. I mean, she's been totally obsessed with it for the last 20 years. She ain't thought about nothing else. Why change her tune all of a sudden? Yeah, but instead she's deciding to devote some attention to this, allegedly, or at least to put her brand on it. Family, this is something you need to understand. Oprah's been a willing sock puppet for white supremacy her entire adult life. The white supremacist media have used her as their front person for all manner of anti-black propaganda and media manipulation of the black community. Come on, let's be bluntly honest here. You really think Oprah's worth as much as the white media tries to claim that she is? Just like Donald Trump, it's all a con. It's an empty claim. It is entirely possible, and I think it's likely the case, that Oprah didn't pay for these billboards at all. She merely lent out her name as a brand so that the white handlers who are behind this they can go ahead and put this phony baloney AstroTurf stunt on and then turn around and claim, hey, this is Oprah's. Oprah's got her name on there, so it had to come from her. So you can't question it. There's a black person behind it. Come on. When it came time to smear Russell Simmons, it was Apple who wanted to do the smearing, but it was Oprah who they wanted to get out there and be their front woman and say, oh, well, you can't really claim it's racist because I'm out here and you get a smear and you get a smear and you get a smear. That's what she was doing. Gail Skank tried and failed to slander Kobe Bryant in death, and here comes Oprah Winfrey out of the woodwork. The movie Precious, she lent her name to that. Yeah, it seems there's a lot of anti-black propaganda being put on by the white media, and Oprah Winfrey can always be counted on to push herself away from the buffet table and come and give her offices, such as they are, to whatever effort the white media is putting on to try to smear, slander, defame black people. Oprah Winfrey has long been a sock puppet for white supremacy. I think this is no different. The white powers that be need to do something. They can't just sit there and see these billboards popping up across the country. New York, Atlanta, Louisville, and other cities. They're seeing this stuff popping up and they're going, whoa, there's a program at work here. There's an agenda at work here. We thought New York was pretty much it. We thought it was going to burn out after that. It's like, this thing's spreading. We better do something. It needs to be big. It needs to get headlines. It's got to overpower what these black grassroots are doing, because a lot of black folks are intellectually lazy and morally cowardly. And as a result, if they see Oprah, even though they know that Oprah is not on our side, Oprah has been doing everything she can to avoid having to speak for black people in any shape, form, or fashion. But if she shows up and pretends that she's putting up some billboards, a lot of black folks, especially the older set, they're going to say, well, Oprah, as long as she getting the message out, man, they've been dumb idiots putting up messages like that on Twitter and online and other places. Well, it don't really matter if Oprah's been MIA for the last 30 years. What really matters is she's showing up now. Well, really, first of all, we don't know that it's her showing up. And second of all, if Oprah ain't done a damn thing for black folks in 35 plus years, are you really so stupid as to think that she suddenly discovered religion now? Well, some of you apparently, yes. Well, for those of us who were not raised on a steady diet of lead-based paint, we see through the scam. We know who's behind it and we know why. Oprah could have pulled this stunt at any time before now. In fact, she should have if she was even concerned one scintilla about black folks. Laquan McDonald was murdered in her hometown of Chicago, but she wasn't very worried about that. This is not about Breonna Taylor, this Oprah-ganda that's being splattered all over Louisville. This is not about Breonna Taylor. This is about the white powers that be noticing that there's a movement that is taking control of the discourse. The white media's lost control of the discourse, and their civil rights retreads and their black baby boomer fossils aren't getting them any traction, and they don't have an answer for it. So after decades of attacking black men and years of ignoring black women who have been murdered by the white supremacists, here comes Oprah Winfrey now. Yeah, because they've seen what's happened nationwide, and they understand this is part of an ongoing war to spotlight white supremacist violence and to get black folks on code, and they see that it's working. See, this is what we tell you. With white supremacy, they are ultra hypersensitive to anything that might even constitute an organized effort by black people to speak in our own regard. They looked at those billboards in New York and they understood, man, that's not a shot, that's a fusillade across the bow. That's a number of shots. You better believe they've been checking out the Black Channel and Jason and the Black Grassroots and me and any of you people who like to comment frequently. They've been checking us out 5 ways from Sunday. And they're looking and saying, these guys, hey, put in some calls to DC. Put in some calls to San Francisco. Put in some calls to Miami and New York. Hey, say, you guys aren't behind this by any chance, you might want to get on code, fellas. You're not behind this by any chance, are you? What they're telling them is, no, these Black Channel billboards, this isn't one of ours. You think it's one of our little organizations, one of the pork chop preachers that we got on the payroll? Nah, those guys, they're too busy going to the NAACP summer luncheon and the Urban League fall fish fry. That's what they're interested in. So that's not them. That's not them at all. They were putting the word out, trying to figure out who the hell's behind these billboards. Who the hell is sitting here trying to cause all this trouble for us. And they realized it wasn't one of their bought and paid for bootlicks, and it's not anyone affiliated with them. In other words, this is coming from a source that they cannot control. And that's the problem. That's the entire problem. So since they can't control this message, they're trying to use Oprah Winfrey to put out some Oprahganda, a message that they do control. So family, if you want to know how important it is that the Black grassroots be on point when it comes to pushing our message, you're seeing what the reaction from the white powers that be has been. They tried to put on a brave front when it happened in New York. Then when they saw other billboards pop up in Atlanta, they're trying to put up a brave front. Now it's happening in Louisville, and they're going, God dang, we can't take, this is too much. This is too much. Now, don't expect to be seeing the white media coming out full force against what we're doing, because they understand that this is a crucial moment. They're not going to be trying to give any sort of platform to us or give us any sort of ability to have name recognition. They're not going to be lending their airwaves to this message, because to even mention us is too dangerous, too damning. They can't do that. So as far as they're concerned, they're going to see if they can drown us out. Our message is so potent, so effective, so frightening to white supremacy, they dare not even mention it. So this is trying to put forward a front Negro, a safe Negro, and they're going to hopefully she can get them some traction, because nobody else has. This is all that they feel they can safely do. We cannot leave the white media any safe harbor to push their propaganda. We cannot let up on the bastards. There's a lot of you out there who have known exactly what the message is. You are the resistance. You don't need to wait for Jason or me or anyone else to give you permission to push the message. Those of you who have been listening to us, especially our folks who have been listening for a long time, you're already familiar with the message package itself. You're already familiar with the basics. You know exactly what the message is supposed to be. You don't need to be waiting for somebody to come to you and tell you what to do. This is why we need self-starters. White supremacists pride themselves on having groups who are self-starters. That way, you're up against a constant phalanx of opposition, teams of opponents. They don't rely on central leadership. They rely on everybody getting on code and everyone acting according to that code. And slowly but surely, we're getting Black people on the exact same wavelength. But we all know that as soon as Oprah thinks that she's made enough of a splash and the white media feels like they've gotten something resembling leverage in this particular instance, when they think they've gotten enough Black folks to look at them, or if they feel that, okay, this burned out and didn't produce much, you're not going to see Oprah doing this next year or even next month. This is a one and done. That is, unless the Black media continues to scare the bejesus out of these white supremacists. But the thing about it is, if Oprah's not producing anything for them, they're not going to keep throwing good money after bad. Oprah merely lent her brand to this effort, and if it pans out, if it gets some traction, good, and if it doesn't, well, they'll try basically the same thing with another front Black person. Don't be surprised if you see Killer Mike. Killer Mike's going to crawl out of whatever refrigerator or whatever buffet line that Oprah hasn't eaten everything on, and that roly-poly hasn't devoured, Killer Mike, he'll abandon whatever chitlin restaurant that he's at, and he'll roll his way in front of the cameras, and that'll be what he does. He's not doing anything in Atlanta, but he might pop up in Louisville. They'll get some other rapper or hip-hop person, because that's what they think. They think that Black people intellectually are like children, because a lot of us have done that exact same nonsense. We have acted politically immature. And the white supremacists have capitalized on it. They cannot afford to actually have a substantive message out there. This is all about trying to see what they can get away with. And we have deprived them of that momentum. We have deprived them of the ability to get away with the old games. And so we see them trying some new ones. Now, speaking of political sophistication, there's been a lot of talk made about the DA's race in Fulton County. That's where Atlanta is, Fulton County, Georgia. And Paul Howard, who put charges on that race soldier who murdered Rashard Brooks, he is now being attacked from two sides. Actually, he's being attacked from a number of sides, but primarily two. One, you got the white powers that be, who are on their face, they're putting forward a so-called political opponent. You got this woman named Fannie Willis. Apparently, she was assistant DA in the Fulton County DA's office for 17 years, working with Paul Howard. Now she's running against him. And it's no accident that they chose a black woman to do this. Now, this is something that needs to be said. And I know it's going to displease some people, but as Jason Black likes to say, damn you. For the longest time, when it comes to DA's offices, they have had a preference for hiring black women to be their assistant DAs. And the reason why is when you're going to be trying to shovel as many black men as possible into the prison system, it's best to get a black face to do the shoveling for you. That's the reason why these DA's offices, you've been seeing these prosecutors' offices that have been largely staffed by black women because they want to make sure that it's a black face so they can always shoo away and otherwise brush off the accusation of clear racial bias by, oh, we had a black female DA who put these niggers away. And if she was if there was a problem, we wouldn't have had one and she wouldn't have gone along with it. Blah, 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 blah. This is an old trick. And it's no accident that you see that a number of these black female politicians who have done the most to try to be apologists for white supremacy, many of them come out of prosecutors' offices. Not just Kamala Harris, but I'm sure you've noticed if you watch my now instant classic video, The Rise and Fall of Kamala Harris, one of the things that I pointed out was that Kamala Harris had been an assistant DA in not one, but two prosecutors' offices before she finally became Oakland DA herself. Before she finally became the DA, she had been the assistant DA for years and years and ran against her old boss and beat him with the support of the police unions. And Fannie Willis is operating out of the exact same playbook. Because without much searching, the first thing that you find out is this Fannie Willis woman, who apparently is so hot and bothered to hear her tell the story, she says, well, this Paul Howard's prosecution of the police, why is he so angry about the killing of Rayshard Brooks? After all, there's a number of killings of black men by the police, and he hasn't been going gung-ho about that. So this is just political year maneuvering. Of course, she doesn't say what the hell her interest in all this is. And it's not until you look and you realize that Fannie Willis has not only been endorsed by the International Brotherhood of Police, she's also received campaign donations from them. So you got a woman who is literally on the payroll of the police. Fannie Willis is literally on the cops' payroll. And yet she's attempting to cast aspersions on Paul Howard. I'm not here to be a spokesperson for Paul Howard. I don't know him well enough, but I do know one thing. The very fact that he put such serious charges on that guy who murdered Rayshard Brooks, that sets a very dangerous precedent. Because what it means is you got a black politician, a black man who's seeking public office, or rather a black man who's holding public office and seeking to continue to hold it. And he's setting the precedent that when you kill a black person, we're going to be throwing harder charges at you now. All of this, something that only gets 5 years. No, man, we're seeking serious prison time at the local level. See, the white supremacists, they've always known that these cops who are killing black people should be in prison for life. But what they've been doing is, I've been telling you this for years, they've been trying to set an artificial ceiling for what would constitute a maximum sentence for a white supremacist. They're trying to set an artificial ceiling that, well, you can't really justify more than 5 years, maybe 2 years tops with good behavior, but no more than 5 years. Why? It was all above board. That's what they've been trying to do through propaganda for years. The white media with their legal experts, nothing more than rhetoricians and liars, largely paid for by white supremacist think tanks. And they've been putting forward that lie that, well, 5 years about all you can get. It's going to be very tough to do, and you don't want to overcharge them, Well, what happened was Paul Howard's like, to hell with that. We're going to set a precedent with this one. And they're scared that this is going to be precedent setting, that other DAs are going to see this, or other black folks in other cities will see this and say, nah, we saw what happened in Atlanta. You need to be hitting that cop with the maximum sentence. I don't know if we can get it. Don't worry. You're going to have a jury that'll make sure you get it. They don't want to see that happen because they know that what will occur is this is going to become habit forming, or at the very least, it's going to become more compelling. You're not going to be getting away with any 5-year charges. It's going to be a matter of, nah, they got to get the hardest time there is, because they've seen what's been happening the last 5 years. We have gone from, it was Jeffrey Toobin, and well, it's just so difficult to convict the police. The public just trusts the police. That's what it is. Now it's a matter of the cops. As soon as they get charged, they know, chances are I'm going to do 5 years. That's become the norm because we kept pushing and we never stopped pushing. And what I told you was we were going to keep pushing until finally we make it the norm that these guys get life. That's going to be the norm. Why? Because the police expect extraordinary protection under law. We're going to make sure they get extraordinary punishment under law. If you think carrying a badge means that you are entitled to exceptional protection under law because of what you do, I say that because you have a badge, you're supposed to get the max, even for jaywalking. Hey, if a cop gets even accused of littering, 25 to life. And if he's accused of killing a black person, that's automatic capital punishment, automatic, off top. We gotta send you to the gas chamber. We gotta give you that poison needle because you wear a badge, you carry a badge. So what that means is any offense that you do that takes the life of a black person, that's automatic capital punishment. You have to get capital punishment because of what you do. The fact you carry a badge means when you do it, it's far worse. It's not merely an offense against the law, it's an offense against justice itself. That's the narrative that's being pushed. And as you can see, it is prevailing. Again, this is not about endorsing Paul Howard. So I got to say that as a disclaimer because you got a bunch of black folks who are politically dim-witted. You got these fools going, brother, was you trying to protect and defend Kelly? Was you trying to protect and defend Bill Cosby? You got these idiots, morons, doing their impersonation of what they think a smart person might sound like. And they think that sounds clever when it sounds stupid. You need to understand when there are attacks that should be against an individual and when you have bigger issues at stake where you're actually fighting not against a person or against a particular action, but against a principle. Many black people are politically unsophisticated, so they can't tell the difference. And there's a class of them who don't care. They just want to run their mouths because that kind of marijuana or crack-induced babble that they can get away with in front of their friends or online because they're too stupid to hold a coherent conversation, they try to bring it here and it don't wash. This is not about Paul Howard. The fact that Paul Howard has done this and the police are so up in arms about it, that is something that we need to make sure that they're powerless to change. That's the precedent that must be set. That you got a DA who puts serious charges against the police. The police decide that they're going to try to gin up a phony baloney contender against it. We're going to get him voted out of office. And that falls flat. But that is not the only thing that the police are doing, because you have this Fannie Willis woman. She's already saying that Paul Howard's going to be criminally charged before the end of the year. Now, how would she know that? How would she know that he hasn't been criminally charged? Oh, sure, you got some ethics charges, but it ain't the same thing. She's saying he's going to be criminally charged. How does she know that? How would she have any way to know that? And why would she be out there telling the voters, especially black voters, oh, this black DA that you got, he's going to be criminally charged? That's because what she's doing is she's sending the message. The message is she is the white supremacist candidate of choice. She happens to be their, forget about Manchurian candidate, she's the mayonnaise candidate. That's what Fannie Willis is. She's the mayonnaise candidate. Because Fannie Willis, in addition to having gotten money from the International Brotherhood of Police, she's also received money from former Atlanta mayoral candidate Mary Norwood, who's a white woman, by the way, city council member. And it's a matter of, just like what they did with Detroit, we got to acclimate the Negroes to accepting white supremacist rule again. We got to make sure they understand that we spent 50 years buying and paying for sock puppet stalking horse candidates. You want to know why it is that black people haven't gotten anything from black politicians? It's because the white supremacists, we've been the ones paying for them. That's what they've been doing for 50 plus years. Why is it that your black politicians have been ignoring you? It's because you didn't choose them. They were chosen for you by the white supremacists. You got these white newspapers and TV stations saying this nigger over here, he should be on the city council. He should be mayor. When they know that person's nothing more than their puppet who is going to maintain the white supremacist status quo. But after a while, you get tired of puppets. It's a matter of, okay, we spent enough time using puppets. Now that nothing's changed, hopefully, now that these puppets have done our bidding and made sure that things remain economically stagnant and we're getting progressive for black people, well, hopefully black people
we were too damn powerful
in black leadership.
That's what was going on.
Black puppets in front of them whose job was to do nothing for them. And hopefully this will undermine black political morale. Hopefully this will destroy black people's political faith in themselves and why they'll be begging the white supremacists to rule them and saying, well, things were better when the white supremacists were in charge. They weren't. But the thing is, people remember most what happened last. So because of that, hopefully that's the con that will go down. And that's what Mary Norwood and her pals are trying to usher in. We've seen this happen across the country. Ever since the 1960s, the white supremacists spent a lot of time and a lot of effort finding and cultivating black political puppets who they would then present to us and say, here's your candidate. Don't pay attention to the white money and the white men behind them. Please pay no attention to the white men behind the curtain. And what would happen is these black puppets would get into office, do nothing for black people, and the white supremacists would gas up these morons' empty heads with all sorts of delusions and asinine talk about, you could be a congressional candidate or even governor. There's been some talk around the cocktail party in the country club about how you could be good material for our next senator. They do that with the black bootlick, and the black bootlick goes really massive. And that's usually the con that gets run on them. And because of the fact that, as I've told you, bootlicks don't have any sort of marketable skills. The only skill that a bootlick has is licking boots. And that's the reason why these guys aren't good for anything else. They can't do anything else. They have to rely on the white benefactors who are giving them some crumbs from the table because they don't have the ability to get anything on their own. And while Fannie Willis is trying to gin up some phony fake outrage about Paul Howard and some phony ethics charges, why is it that nobody's talking about Fannie Willis and the money that she's received from the police unions? The police unions are clearly going to expect that anyone who they put money into the pockets of are going to have to pay them back through policy. And the main policy that the police unions want, you make sure that any white cop who kills a black person never sees a day in prison. You don't bring charges against them. We want immunity from law. This is a clear conflict of interest. This is a clear ethics violation. Yeah, but you're not going to see anybody saying, hey, Fannie Willis should be brought up on charges. She's just taking money from the police unions. You think they're not going to want anything for that money? Hey, it's improper for you to be taking money from the very cops who the public is saying to prosecute. But that never becomes an ethics issue, and the white media doesn't make it into an ethics issue, but the black community is. The black community in Atlanta clearly is not happy that Fannie Willis is getting money from the police who were killing them in the streets. So why is that not called a controversial endorsement? See, when it comes to the police, you never put controversial on anything that the police do. Police unions' actions are never controversial. Getting the support of the police is never controversial, even when the people are demonstrating in the streets. Even when there's riots nationwide against the police, getting the police's endorsement is not controversial. White media never calls that controversial. And you don't have any politicians going, this is improper. It's never improper, never controversial, never unethical, never questionable. But this is what Fannie Willis is up to. While she's busy trying to cast aspersions on Paul Howard, meanwhile, she's taking money from the police, and I'm sure that she's not going to be paying them back through policy. I'm sure that she's going to be bringing charges. She's going to be doing just like all these other DAs. Well, we looked at it and there was just nothing we could do, That's what they're setting up here. The white media attempting to whitewash it and to say, well, it's all above board. And the clear purpose behind all this is to send the message to Paul Howard and black politicians in Fulton County, Atlanta, and across the country. If you call yourself thinking that you're going to popularize running on a political platform of punishing white supremacists, especially the enforcement arm of white supremacy, if you think you're going to run on a platform of breaking the enforcement arm of white supremacy, well, we're going to come at you with everything we got. Why, we'll even pay some black stooge to be our front person so that we can hide behind them. And it'll be harder for you to point to the white supremacists who are behind them pushing this effort. Oh, yeah, if you take money from the police, that's just good politicking. But if you call yourself punishing the police, well, that's controversial. You're going to be embattled. That's an ethics charge. That's criminal. Everyone will understand the real crime that Paul Howard committed was not any sort of phony baloney ethics, fraudulent falsehoods about ethics violations. The real charge was he called himself punishing a white man. That was the real crime that Paul Howard committed. And as for Fannie Willis, nobody's going to be saying that she should lose her law license. Nobody's going to say she should be disbarred. Nobody's going to say bring her before the state bar disciplinary committee. Nobody's going to say that. Because they understand that what she's really doing is she's going to the mat for white supremacy. And that's the message that will clearly get across to everyone. Paul Howard is going to get jammed up in the courts because he is trying to punish a white man who murdered a black man. Fannie Willis, she's committing possible crimes, certainly ethics violations all the live long day, but as long as she's doing it to prop up and support the enforcement arm of white supremacy and to give immunity of law to white supremacist violence, well, it's all good. And everyone will understand the clear message that's being sent. And that's the reason why they're doing this. And so we've seen black municipality after black municipality be betrayed by the very black people who claimed that they were going to finally be giving power to the people. Because these people, these individuals have been chosen by white supremacists. And this is what Mary Norwood's about. And this is who Fannie Willis has taken money from. She's taken money from the police, and she's taken money from the old white leadership of Atlanta. And apparently the idea is they're going to be using her as their stalking horse, and she is eagerly trying to get that job. You know what? I bet she's already having daydreams about how she's going to be vice president one day or something like that. You can tell that the black bootlick always thinks to themselves that, oh, these white supremacists, they love me so much. But that's what's going on in Fulton County right now. This is the con, the fraud that Fannie Willis is attempting to promote. This is Kamala Harris all over again. I don't know if Fannie Willis is descended from any people from the Caribbean or from Africa or what have you, but I do know this woman doesn't give a damn about the black folks of Atlanta that much. I do know. By the way, you notice how she hasn't said what it is that she's going to be doing to make sure that the murder of Rashad Brooks gets the hardest time there is. Notice how she's not doing that. She's not talking about, hey, I can be tougher on police violence than Paul Howard is. Notice how that's not the line that she's using. She's not using the line of, I'm going to be as hard on these white supremacists. I'm going to put these bastards through hell. As soon as I get elected, every white supremacist better either get out of town, or they better come begging for mercy, because I'm going to be putting cases on all these scumbags. Notice how that's not what she's saying. Instead, what she's talking about is Paul Howard. Somebody should be putting a case on him. So she's not concerned about the white supremacists who have been running roughshod over black people. She's a former prosecutor in his office. If she's so hot and bothered about all the cases of black people killed or harmed by the police that she claims Paul Howard hasn't done anything about, notice how she's not saying that she's going to do anything about it either. Oh, she'll point and say, well, Paul Howard, plenty of cases of black people being harmed or killed by the police, and Paul Howard hasn't felt moved to do anything about that before this year. He hasn't made an issue out of those. Yeah, and she ain't making an issue out of it either. So what does that tell you? You better learn to understand when somebody's running game on you. So I hope you see what's been happening here. This last week, we've had the white supremacists attempting to mobilize. And you notice that they're using black women in particular to do this. And the reason why is this is their strategy. They're thinking to themselves, hey, the only play we got, is it possible, just possible, that we still have some mileage in the you go girl scam? That they're trying to see that because they realize black women ain't going for the scam like that. Oh, you got a few sorority skanks, and you got some shea butter biscuit bootlick bed wenches, you know, some aspiring Kamala Harris's and Fannie Willis types. Somebody who thinks that they're going to have Simone Sanders' job one day. You know, in other words, they get to be an apologist for an old white racist man. That's what they have. They got some of those, the Karine Jean-Pierre idiots and the Joy Reid. There's a few of those idiots like that. But the truth of the matter is black women have been seeing what's been happening. And they couldn't help but notice that these individuals who the white media is trying to put out there, these black women who've decided that they're going to be sock puppets for this or that white supremacist cause du jour, they realize it ain't working like it used to. Make no mistake, Fannie Willis knows exactly what she's doing. White supremacists have put her out there, and her entire job is to try to put together a partially black voter coalition. Everybody understands she is the white supremacist candidate. That's why the police and the old white leadership of Atlanta are behind her. It is fully understood that Fannie Willis is their black sock puppet. She is their tool. She is going to do what the white supremacists want, which is to restore the white supremacists to power, or at the very least to maintain their legal immunity from law. Everyone understands she's the white supremacist candidate. She is their tool. And that being the case, the goal is, hey, we're going to have her with a voter coalition. You know, if we can just carve off enough black votes. We already know that the white supremacists are going to mobilize the casual racist, read white moderates. We're going to mobilize the white vote to get behind Fannie Willis. And hopefully she can slice off just enough black votes, particularly black female votes. That's why they keep making a big deal. You know, black women voted. Black women. What they really mean is black men have broken bad on the Democratic Party. And what they're hoping is they're trying to keep black women from doing the same. So they're giving a bunch of insincere praise to black women, hopefully enough psychological masturbation, and black women won't start thinking. At least that's the working theory. But it's going to be tested on Tuesday. We already know that Fannie Willis is going to get a huge part of, she's going to get the majority of white votes of people who vote for the DA. The question is, how many black folks are going to decide that seeing this stalking horse somehow is not a threat to them? And of course, what's going to happen is the old life is going to return soon enough, because once you send the message that the white supremacists can no longer expect even a movement in the direction of hard punishment against them, that's going to embolden the white supremacists. I'm not saying that Paul Howard rides in on a white horse or a black horse or any other color horse. I'm not saying that Paul Howard is somehow going to be a panacea, but what I'm saying is what he represents in political terms. The white supremacists are sending you a message. They don't want to see the trend, whether or not Paul Howard is getting up every morning going, oh, Lord, I can't wait to put some of them cops in prison or not. That's beside the point. The point is the white supremacists understand that this man is running on a platform of, I'm going to be giving serious time to anyone who kills black people. They don't want to see any bricks taken away from that wall. The white supremacists certainly seem to look at Paul Howard and see someone who they don't think that they can work with, somebody who seems to be threatening to them. If not what he's doing, at the very least, what his present actions represent. See, that's what happens when you're politically sophisticated. You're looking at trends. You're not just looking at the man himself, you're looking at the principle. You're looking at what this guy represents. And Fannie Willis would represent a repudiation of all that. But understand, Paul Howard, he gets reelected. Even if he doesn't get reelected, they've already shown what their plan is. What their plan is that, okay, since you're going to start putting cases on these white supremacists, serious cases, since you're threatening us directly now, we're going to see if we can bring you up on charges. We're going to try to jam you up with one phony baloney ethics charge after the next. We're going to put some criminal charges against you if we can. We're going to claim something. Hey, we got the state attorney general. We're going to see if we can get them to bring something against you. That's going to be what plan B is. If they can't win at the ballot box, if their stalking horse fails to fool or connive or otherwise deceive a critical mass of black people into breaking for her, then what's going to happen is, and I think this will happen regardless of if Paul Howard gets reelected or not, but the goal clearly is that if he gets reelected, go ahead and start attacking him through the state attorney general's office. We see that time and again. By the way, saw it in Michigan. At the state level, where the white supremacists have greater numbers at the state level, they keep doing that. If we can't overwhelm black people at the local level, we'll see if we can interfere with them at the state level. And Paul Howard, we're going to see if we can bring some phony baloney criminal charges against him. If Paul Howard loses, then guess what? They'll still bring criminal charges anyway, simply to make the point so they can say, hey, he was voted out by the voters and then soon after he checked into prison. Because that's the idea. They want to send the message to a lot of black politicians, crooked and honest alike, to send the message. You go against what the white supremacists say, and well, you may have the numbers at the local or even county level, but there's no black polity that has organized itself to exercise disproportionate heft at the state level, and the state level is where the state attorney general's at. That you better believe they're going to be on code at the state level. So for the people out there who are basically career skeptics about a lot of things, whether you have information about it or not, whether you have enough information to actually draw any conclusions, you better understand that what's happening out there in Fulton County, this is something that the white supremacists feel threatened by. They're going all out about this for a reason. You see, a lot of black folks didn't think that the killing of Trayvon Martin was a watershed event. The white supremacists understand that there are events that drive trends throughout the nation. And that if you sleep on those kind of things, or if you don't assign them the importance that they're due, as black people in too many cases have, when it comes to white supremacist violence against us, next thing you know, you're going to be seeing the floodgates open, just attack after attack after attack. The white supremacists thought that they were on a run for a little while, and it seemed like they may have been. But the black grassroots pushed and kept pushing. The next thing you know, cops started getting charged. Next thing you know, cops started getting hit with conviction after conviction. Now that's starting to become the norm. And now you're seeing that there are DAs saying there are laws on the books now, new laws getting put on the books against them. And DAs saying, you know what, no more of this cops claiming that he had a weapon or something. No, we're going to hit you with the hardest time there is. That's what they're seeing. They're seeing that the trend has merely gone from being just against them to now it's running them into the ground. And they're desperate at this point because what's happening in a major city like Atlanta, they don't want to see that spreading anywhere else. Because black people have relatives all over the country in the few places that we're at. Black folks in Atlanta start talking. Black people in DC hear about it. Black people in Baltimore hear about it. Black people in Memphis talk about it. Black folks in New Orleans, Dallas, Houston, you get the idea, start talking about it. And it starts setting expectations among black people as to what ought to be happening in their towns. Black folks ain't going to be listening to Sucker Mike. They're not going to be listening to these black puppets. Instead, you're going to have black folks saying, you know what? We're not worried about that ballot box. What we're concerned about is whether or not these scumbags get punished. And the expectation is they're going to get the hardest time there is. You're going to be settling for, oh, well, he got convicted. No. He's supposed to get the hardest time there is. You either get life or you get capital punishment, one or the other. But all this mamby-pamby 5-year stuff, no, forget about all that. That's what's happening here. That's where the trend is going if it is not stopped. And so Paul Howard is seen as being a possible watershed event on the East Coast. If he gets successfully reelected, the white supremacists can try to bring charges against him, but it's very difficult to be actually bringing criminal charges against a politician while he holds office. It's part of the reason why they usually have the feds do that. At the state level, it's very, very difficult. And if he's holding office, first thing he can point to and say is, you know, I got reelected and they're trying to get me out of office like this because they can't get me out of office any other way. They tried and they failed. The voters are against them. It also pretends serious consequences from the electorate. Marion Barry got jammed up on drug charges, and when he got that behind him, he ran for re-election and won. The voters were still with him. So the white supremacists understand how dangerous it is to call themselves going after an elected official, especially a black elected official, while they're in office. It's one thing to try to call in the feds to do it. Doing it at the state level, that's going to be the easiest sell in the world to say, see, these good old boys, the white supremacists couldn't take that L, so look at them trying to steal an election that they knew that they couldn't win. But it also means Fannie Willis gets repudiated. The same old strategy of we're going to bring out some black bootlick. We're going to prop them up and they're going to do our bidding for us. It's going to be a matter of, that doesn't even work. So how are you going to incentivize the next black bootlick when they realize, that con game ain't going to work. That con, only thing I'm going to do is ruin myself. That's going to you're going to have the black bootlicks get real leery about this kind of stuff when they realize that it doesn't work. But that only happens if we do what we're supposed to do. No amount of Oprah-ganda in Louisville or Copaganda in Fulton County can be successful if black folks understand what's in their interest. That brings me to the final subject of this evening's video address. When it comes to elections at the federal level, we have no stake in that. Nobody's promising us anything. But I have always told you that it makes sense. You can vote at the local and state level so long as you have somebody who's offering you tangibles, making sure that these white supremacists are doing hard time, making sure the white supremacists are denied a crucial victory. They want that white supremacist to walk so that they can point and say, see, he should sue to get his job back and blah, 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 blah. That's where this is going as far as they're concerned. As black folks, when it comes to voting at the state and local level where we can actually take offices for ourselves, that makes sense. But voting for somebody who offers you absolutely nothing, I don't give a dang if he's running for dog catcher. If he's not offering you anything, that's stupid. And you can try to make excuses for it. You sound like an idiot making excuses. So voting at the local and state level, you make sure that whoever it is, you're getting something tangible for it. Now, in the case of Paul Howard, since the white supremacists are so scared about this one, we need to make sure that the white supremacist thugs with badges are put on notice, which he has done, by the way. This is an important thing to show that the public is behind, to focus the will of the public behind making sure the white supremacists get hit with the hardest time there is. There is real value in voting for Paul Howard, regardless of whatever the skeptics, many of whom I think are nothing more than white supremacist plants. Whatever these suspected white supremacist plants might be trying to say online, there is value to making sure that the message gets sent. If you run on a platform of, I'm going to put the police in prison, that's going to get you in office. That's an important precedent to be set. You want to get the votes, say that you're going to put cases on the police, say you're going to put the police in prison, and make sure that they get the hardest time there is. That'll get you elected. That gets you votes. I can tell you right now, if you had some white supremacists running on a platform of, I'm going to get as many black people in prison as possible, this black guy over here, this guy, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, defended himself from the police, and we're going to put a case on him. We're going to make sure we're going to get a case on this guy. Kenneth Walker, he can't be allowed to walk. We're going to put a case on him. You would be looking at that and going, hold on, something needs to be done about that. And you would be right. That would be an election worth getting involved in because it needs to send a message. When a black man defends his woman and defends himself from white supremacist violence, that is a sacred act. That is sacrosanct. He's the good guy. Give this guy a parade. You don't call yourself trying to put some nuisance suit against him or trying to jam him up. That's a man who deserves the key to the city. Defending yourself against white supremacist violence is a virtuous act and must be regarded as such. Likewise, white supremacist violence is absolutely intolerable.
What?
And it must be punished as such. So you make sure that before you go calling yourself voting at the state or local level, you know what the hell it is you're voting for. Either you are voting for our legal and political defense,
Can't go to sleep.
and that means there must be a direct line toward white supremacists being punished. If you're not voting for white supremacists to be punished specifically for that, a candidate who's making it clear, a vote for me is a vote to punish the white supremacists. If you're not voting for that, you're voting for nothing.
Yeah.
If a candidate comes up to you and they're giving you the same empty words about economic development or some other mamby-pamby words that don't mean anything, if they're not actually talking about tangibles, they're talking around tangibles, they're not actually talking about tangibles, then you don't vote for that. It's a foolish thing to turn out to vote for. You vote for tangibles and you vote for punishment for the white supremacists. Those are the issues. Candidates run on the issue of, here are the tangibles that the black community is going to get. We're prioritizing economic tangibles for the black community. Okay, then you can get our vote, but you got to be specific about it. No vagaries. I need to be able to draw a direct line between what you say and my bank account. Now, if you say that, now we're talking. Otherwise, kick rocks. So this is what's going on, family. The white supremacist effort against us is intensifying. They see exactly what's going on, and they're trying to put up roadblocks now. And this all fronting on the election, all of this leading, breadcrumbs leading up to that election in November. and beyond that. Because they understand that what's starting now is a generational war against white supremacy to dismantle it. And if they're not able to stymie it now, not able to weaken it now, if they're not able to undermine the proponents and thought leaders of Black empowerment now, if they're not able to try to drown out what we're saying now, if they're not able to counter what we've done, because the reason Paul Howard got a little bit of steel in his spine to do this is because he saw that there could be possible support from the Black grassroots if he did. That's what emboldened him. Same thing with Colin Kaepernick. When these guys understand that there's going to be support from the grassroots, that emboldens them. So the white supremacists are like, we gotta undermine that Black grassroots support. Hey, I know, we'll put forward some Black hawking points put out there by some mouthpiece who we got on our payroll, and hopefully the Negroes will go for that because they're simple-minded sorts, and all you got to do is get a Black front person to spew your lies, and the Negroes will go for it because they're simple-minded and they don't think. I believe that the white supremacists are wrong on all counts. I think it's a brand new day, but it is up to you, the grassroots, to show the white supremacists that they are dead wrong.